John Brown was born in Torrington, Connecticut, May 14, 1800. He grew up as a religious man and became known as one of the most famous abolitionists, or opponents in slavery, in history. He also became known as one of the most controversial abolitionists in America's history because of his tendency to use violence to achieve his goals. During John Brown's life and mission to abolish slavery, he killed many innocent men and used radical tactics to get his voice heard by the people. John Brown's actions and beliefs influenced the abolitionist movement in many different ways, and many people of this time had mixed feelings about his ideals. John Brown's first real introduction to slavery was when he was 12. He stayed with a slave-owning man in Michigan, and while he was there, he remembered seeing a young slave boy being mistreated, which led him to declare eternal war with slavery. He started to believe that the only way to end slavery was through bloodshed, which most abolitionists did not believe in. As Brown got older, his radical views on slavery caught the eye of many important people. At around the age of 55, Brown started collecting money from some of these important public figures in New England to help him along his lifelong journey of ending slavery. Most of these founders, unaware of the details of his plans, helped him gather men, money, and guns to supply him with the necessities to win his battle. Brown had reasons not to trust many people, especially since a major war was starting over the controversies of slavery. He wrote letters to his prominent New England investors, also known as the Secret Six, regarding the fact that one of the men in their party was not to be trusted. The man that John Brown insisted that could not be trusted was Hugh Forbes, who was briefly his military commander who notified people of Brown's plans to initiate an anti-slavery war. On May 24, 1856, Brown and his sons raided cabins in Kansas and forced 5 pro-slavery men and 2 of their sons into Potawatomi Creek and hacked them to death with swords. They killed these men not because they did or said anything against Brown or his children, but because they were supporters of slavery. Brown and his children picked these men to make a statement for everyone to know what they were fighting for. The incident made Brown nationally known, and while some people criticized him, others thought of him as a hero. In July 1859, Brown rented out a farmhouse near Harper's Ferry, Virginia, in order for him and his men to scope out their plan of attack and to reside until the final date of action. Here Brown and his men planned final arrangements for their raid on the federal arsenal. They planned to liberate slaves from surrounding farms and recruit them to help them fight in the raid. Little did they know that no slaves would end up following them because they were too scared of the final outcome. Brown was so passionate about his work that while he was in the final steps of preparing his plan to raid Harper's Ferry, he wrote a letter to his son, John Jr., in order to have him carry out his work if anything happened to him. Since some people agreed with the way Brown conducted his abolitionist movement, Brown knew that if his son took after his work, he would be looked after and supported by others. Brown wanted his work to be carried on and believed so much in it that he wanted to ensure the fact that if he did die by the many men who did hate him, that the right people would never let his movement die. On October 16th, Brown and 21 of his men, including 5 blacks and 2 of his sons, set out for Harper's Ferry. They reached the town at 4 a.m. the next morning and cut all of the telephone wires, and then made their assault. They captured the local arsenal and armory, then carried on to the Hall's Rifle Works, a supplier of weapons to the Southern government. They then rounded up to 60 prominent men of the town and held them hostage as local residents came to defend their town. Led by Robert E. Lee, 90 Marines arrived from Washington, D.C. to join the fight against Brown and his men. Brown and his men barricaded themselves along with some of their hostages in the engine house. Later the next morning, the Marines stormed the engine house, cutting Brown with their swords. Brown was captured and taken to Charleston, where he was jailed and awaited trial. While imprisoned after being captured at Harper's Ferry, Brown writes a letter to his wife and children explaining his situation and how his 2 sons, Watson and Oliver, had died. He comforts them and leaves them with a passage from the Bible, reassuring them that he was only trying to do the work of God. After he was in prison, many people who read this letter believed that John Brown was really trying to do the work of God and that he saw only good in the things that he did, while others believed that he was insane and murdering people for no reason at all. Many abolitionists who did not believe in what John Brown was doing believed that he really did think that he was doing the work of God, but they didn't condone of his actions. After Brown's trial in Charlestown, he was seen stepping out of the courthouse, giving a black baby a kiss on the forehead. He believed that everyone was equal, and he was fighting for the well-being of all people neglected of basic liberties because of their skin color, especially for the innocents and the children who were too young to be aware of their horrible future and what it had in store for them. Many people did not agree with Brown's work or his actions, but as he stood trial for treason and terrorism, these people also thought that he didn't deserve the death penalty. There was a huge debate on how to convict Brown for his actions. Most Southerners hated him and thought that the only fair penalty for Brown was death, while others pleaded and threatened the courts not to hang Brown. Abolitionists from all around came forward saying that Brown was crazy and really thought he was working under God's hand and didn't think that he should die for it, even if he was wrong, while still other abolitionists wished that the courts would hang him because he was giving their abolitionist movement a bad name. Many people still believed in Brown as being a man of great work. They believed that he was actually doing the work of God and was doing right by trying to help free the slaves. Many people also believed that after the death of Brown, his work would still be carried on, and they tried to recruit new people to his ideas and beliefs. John Brown was a very controversial abolitionist, not only because of his beliefs and ideals, but because of his actions and use of violence. All Southerners hated Brown and wanted nothing more than to see him dead. Other abolitionists either disagreed with him for his use and violence or loved him for his strength and passion. Brown ignited a flame that continued to grow until his mission was accomplished long after his death.